This is the story of how Kevin Spacey lost roughly $31 million in a private arbitration, even after being acquitted in every criminal and civil court that ever heard his case. It's also the story of how a two-time Academy Award winner went from earning $500,000 per episode of House of Cards to losing his Baltimore mansion at auction and telling Piers Morgan on camera that he no longer knew where he was going to live. For our older audience, who watched Spacey rise through the 90s in films like The Usual Suspects and American Beauty, the financial collapse may be the most jarring part of this entire saga. The criminal charges came and went, the civil lawsuits came and went, but the contract case, the one almost nobody followed in real time, is the one that actually broke him. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to walk through exactly what happened, in the order it happened, using only what has been confirmed by court filings, the trade publications that covered the case, and the public record. Let's begin at the beginning. The allegation that started it all. On October 29, 2017, BuzzFeed News published an article by reporter Adam B. Vary in which actor Anthony Rapp, then 46 years old and best known for the Broadway musical Rent and the series Star Trek, Discovery, alleged that in 1986, when he was 14 years old and Spacey was 26, Spacey had invited him to a party at his Manhattan apartment. Rapp described Spacey picking him up, in his words, like a groom picks up a bride, placing him on a bed and climbing on top of him. Context matters here. The New York Times had published its first Harvey Weinstein expose on October 5, 2017, just 24 days earlier. The hashtag #MeToo movement was gathering force by the day, and Kevin Spacey, at that moment, was one of the most powerful actors on television, starring in Netflix's flagship original drama, House of Cards. Spacey responded the following day, October 30, 2017, in a statement posted to Twitter around midnight Eastern Time. He claimed to have a lot of respect and admiration for Rapp, that he was beyond horrified to hear his story, and that he did not remember the encounter, which would have been over 30 years earlier. He apologized for what he called deeply inappropriate drunken behavior. But here's the thing. In that same statement, Spacey also chose to come out as gay, writing, "I choose now to live as a gay man." The reaction was immediate and severe. GLAAD's CEO, Sarah Kate Ellis, responded with, "Coming out stories should not be used to deflect from allegations of sexual assault." The comedian Wanda Sykes put it more sharply, telling Spacey, "You do not get to choose to hide under the rainbow." Within 72 hours, the story had grown far beyond Anthony Rapp. House of Cards falls apart. On November 2, 2017, CNN published an investigation in which 8 current and former House of Cards staffers described Spacey's on-set behavior as predatory and the work environment as toxic. One former production assistant alleged that Spacey had put his hands down the PA's pants while driving toward the set. That same day, internally at Netflix, co-CEO Ted Sarandos sent a message that would surface years later through court filings, writing, "Let's announce tomorrow that there is no scenario in which Kevin Spacey will appear in any version of a final season of the show." Production of House of Cards. Season 6 began in October 2017. By October 31st, Netflix and the production company MRC had issued a joint statement suspending production to give us time to review the current situation. 3 days later, on November 3, 2017, Netflix made it official, releasing a statement that read, quote, "Netflix will not be involved with any further production of House of Cards that includes Kevin Spacey." A separate Spacey film, a biopic of Gore Vidal, already in post-production, was cancelled the same day. To understand what came next, you have to understand the company on the other side of the table. MRC stands for Media Rights Capital. Founded in 2004 by 2 Harvard Business School classmates, Modi Wichik and Asif Sachu, who sold House of Cards to Netflix in 2011 in what became the streamer's first major original series purchase. The show, in a real sense, helped build modern Netflix. Now MRC had a problem on its hands. The final season was already in production. Sets were built, crews were hired, scripts were written, and the lead actor had just been ejected from his own show. The decisions that followed cost MRC tens of millions of dollars, and those costs became the foundation of everything that came afterward. The production disaster. Production on Season 6 was suspended from October 31st, 2017 until January 31st, 2018, when it finally resumed. The final season was cut from 13 episodes down to 8. 8 completed scripts had to be scrapped, and the entire season had to be rewritten and re-storyboarded. Robin Wright, who had played Claire Underwood for 5 seasons, was elevated to lead. Production wrapped on May 25th, 2018, and the final 8 episodes streamed on Netflix beginning November 2nd, 2018. Wright described the human cost to Porter magazine in October 2018, telling them, quote, "They printed that it was only 600 people out of work. But if you include security, cops, shooting on location in Baltimore, everything, 2,500 people would have been out of a job. And that's not fair, to take that security away from those people. They didn't do anything wrong." While all of this played out publicly, something else was happening in the shadows. In January of 2019, MRC filed a confidential arbitration demand through JAMS, a private arbitration service. The company wasn't suing Spacey in open court. They were going after him under the terms of his contract, behind closed doors. That distinction is the key to understanding why he eventually lost. The contract Spacey couldn't beat. Kevin Spacey had signed 2 contracts with MRC, an acting agreement and an executive producing agreement, and both required him to provide his services, quote, "in a professional manner and consistent with MRC's reasonable directions, practices, and policies, including MRC's harassment policy." His contract did not contain what's traditionally called a morals clause, and his lawyer would later emphasize that point in court. But none of that mattered, because the professional conduct provisions and the harassment policy reference were enough. The arbitration landed with a single arbitrator, Bruce Friedman, based in Century City, California. In February of 2020, an 8-day evidentiary hearing took place. More than 20 depositions had already been taken, and on October 19, 2020, Friedman issued a 46-page ruling in favor of MRC. That ruling stayed confidential. The public didn't know it existed for over a year. The arbitrator found, in language quoted later by MRC's own court filings, that Spacey had, quote, "as a result of certain conduct in connection with several crew members in each of the 5 seasons that he starred in and executive produced House of Cards, had repeatedly breached his contractual obligations." MRC's later filings, as reported by Rolling Stone, alleged the arbitrator identified over 10 different occasions in which Spacey had sexually touched young crew members, with 5 specific crew members involved in the findings. This is the crucial legal point that gets missed. The arbitrator did not need to prove sexual assault beyond a reasonable doubt, the standard in a criminal court. He did not even need to prove battery by a preponderance of the evidence, the standard in a civil tort case. He only needed to find that Spacey had violated the conduct clauses of his own contract, and he did exactly that. Spacey appealed internally to a JAMS panel of 3 former judges, and in November 2021, that panel rejected the appeal. That's when the case finally became public. The public reckoning. On November 22, 2021, MRC filed a petition in Los Angeles Superior Court to confirm the arbitration award, and the Wall Street Journal broke the story. For the first time, the public learned that Kevin Spacey had already lost an arbitration that had been running for nearly 3 years. The total award broke down into 3 pieces: $29,500,000 in compensatory damages, $1,200,000 in attorney's fees, and $235,707 in costs. The combined total came to roughly $30,900,000, which the press rounded to nearly $31 million. Spacey's legal team, led by Stephen Larson and Jonathan Phillips, fought back hard. They argued that the 5 crew members had not surfaced until MRC's internal investigation after he was already fired. They argued that Netflix's November 2nd, 2017 decision to exclude him was the real cause of the shortened season rather than his alleged conduct. And they argued that the damages were not, in legal terms, rationally related to the specific breaches. In court papers, Spacey's lawyers wrote, quote, "Spacey participated in a pervasive on-set culture that was filled with sexual innuendos, jokes, and innocent horseplay, but he never sexually harassed anyone." They added, quote, "The few times Spacey was told that his conduct made someone feel uncomfortable or was in any way unwanted, he stopped." On August 4th, 2022, Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Mel Red Ricana issued his ruling, confirming the arbitration award in full, and the language he chose was unusually direct. Judge Ricana wrote, quote, "The arbitrator's final award shows that the damages awarded were rationally related to Spacey's breach, as the award was aimed at compensating for or alleviating the effects of the breach." Then came the line that landed hardest, quote, "Here, Spacey fails to demonstrate that this is even a close case." Not a close case. That was the court's finding. MRC's lead attorney, Michael Kump, issued a brief statement telling the press, quote, "We are pleased with the court's ruling." The other courts. This is where the story gets genuinely strange, because while Spacey was losing the contract case, he was winning everywhere else. In July of 2019, criminal sexual assault charges in Nantucket, Massachusetts, brought by an accuser named William Little, were dropped after the complainant pleaded the fifth on a missing phone. On October 20th, 2022, just 2 months after Judge Ricana confirmed the arbitration award, a federal jury in New York ruled in Spacey's favor in Anthony Rapp's $40 million civil battery lawsuit, with the jury deliberating for approximately 80 minutes before finding him not liable. Then came July 26, 2023, his 64th birthday, when a London jury at Southwark Crown Court acquitted Spacey on all 9 sex offence charges that had been brought against him in the United Kingdom. Consider what that combination actually means. In the criminal courts, where the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, Kevin Spacey is innocent because he was acquitted. In the civil courts, where the standard is preponderance of the evidence, Kevin Spacey is not liable because the jury said so. But in the contract arbitration, where the standard is also preponderance of the evidence, yet where judges give arbitrators extraordinary deference, and where the only question was whether he violated his own employment conduct clauses, Kevin Spacey lost completely, and he owed almost $31 million. This 3-tier outcome is now studied in entertainment law, cited in continuing legal education materials, warning Hollywood executives and talent about how narrow the grounds for vacating an arbitration award really are. Proskauer Rose, one of the major employment law firms, published an analysis of the case on its California Employment Law Update blog in August 2022, and the headline was simply, quote, "California court confirms Kevin Spacey must pay $31 million to House of Cards producers." The settlement nobody saw coming. By late 2023, the award had ballooned to approximately $36 million with accrued interest, according to Variety's reporting by Gene Madaeus. On December 18, 2023, Spacey and MRC reached a settlement, though the terms stayed under seal until Variety reported them on February 6, 2024. The headline figure was startling. Kevin Spacey would pay $1 million. Not 31, not 36. 1. The payment would arrive in installments equal to 10% of his after-tax income annually. Why would MRC accept that? The answer is that MRC had another lawsuit running. In April of 2022, the company had sued 2 cast insurance carriers, Fireman's Fund and Lloyd's of London, arguing that Spacey's removal from the show should have been covered as a sickness under their cast insurance policies. Judge Mark Epstein in Los Angeles Superior Court twice rejected MRC's arguments, writing in one ruling, quote, "These policies just do not insure against this particular risk." The Lloyd's case was fully dismissed, but the Fireman's Fund case continued. And to win that case, MRC needed Kevin Spacey on its side. Under the settlement, Spacey agreed to cooperate with MRC, to testify, to provide medical records, and to submit to medical examinations as a witness for MRC against the insurance carriers. MRC's amended complaint, filed January 2, 2024, now claims Spacey was being treated for anxiety and depression, a framing the Fireman's Fund lawyers called borders on the absurd, and which they described as a 180-degree pivot from the harassment narrative that had originally won the arbitration. The same actor who had been found by an arbitrator to have repeatedly breached his harassment policy obligations was now MRC's cooperating witness, helping the company try to recover money from its own insurers. The case is set for a 6-week trial in Los Angeles. The cost of winning. For Kevin Spacey personally, the legal wins arrived at a price the legal losses had already set. In 2017, Celebrity Net Worth estimated his net worth at approximately $100 million. By 2024 and 2025, the same outlet pegged his net worth at effectively zero, possibly negative by around $2 million. These remain estimates from an aggregator rather than audited figures, but they tell a directional story. The most public sign of that collapse arrived on June 11, 2024. In a televised interview with Piers Morgan, Spacey was asked where he was living, and his answer, in his own words, was this, quote, "It's funny you ask that question because this week, where I have been living in Baltimore is being foreclosed on. My house is being sold at auction, so I have to go back to Baltimore and put my things in storage. So the answer to that question is, I'm not sure where I'm going to live now." On Bankruptcy, he admitted, quote, "There's been a couple of times when I thought I was going to file, but we've managed to dodge it, at least as of today." The Baltimore house had been purchased in 2017 for $5,650,000. In July of 2024, it sold at auction for $3,200,000 to a buyer named Sam Asghari. The man who once earned $500,000 per episode of House of Cards, who held 2 Oscars and ran the Old Vic Theatre in London for over a decade, was, by his own televised account, without a permanent home. What this case means. The Kevin Spacey arbitration now stands as the leading American case on the enforcement of workplace conduct clauses through private arbitration in the entertainment industry. It established something Hollywood lawyers now repeat to their clients constantly. A criminal acquittal does not protect you from a contract claim. A civil verdict in your favor does not protect you from a contract claim. And the only thing that protects you from a contract claim is the contract itself and the conduct it covers. Spacey continues to deny all the underlying sexual misconduct allegations. The arbitrator's findings concerned breach of contract, not criminal guilt, and those are 2 different things that need to be kept separate. But the financial consequence landed the same as if he had lost in any other forum, and arguably worse because arbitration moves faster, the appellate rights are narrower, and the public learns about it only when the winner chooses to file in open court. There have been voices in Hollywood calling for his return. Sharon Stone, Liam Neeson, F. Murray Abraham, and Stephen Fry have publicly defended him. Stone described him as, quote, "a genius." Neeson said the industry, quote, "needs him and misses him greatly." He has worked since the case ended, appearing in independent films like Peter 5'8", Control, and a feature called 1242, Gateway to the West. He has performed live cabaret-style shows. In 2023, he received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Museum of Cinema in Turin. The major studio work has not returned. the Netflix paychecks have not returned, and the financial wound from a confidential arbitration that began in January of 2019 has, by every available indicator, not closed. To return to the premise we started with, this is the story of how Kevin Spacey lost roughly $31 million in a private arbitration, even after being acquitted in every criminal and civil court that ever heard his case. The Anthony Rapp allegation in October 2017 started the fall. CNN's reporting, Netflix's decision, and the production disaster on House of Cards Season 6 supplied the damages. Contract clauses signed years earlier supplied the legal grounds. Arbitrator Bruce Friedman supplied the ruling, Judge Mel Red-Racana supplied the public confirmation, and the Lost Baltimore Mansion, the auction, the cabaret shows, and the Piers Morgan interview supplied the ending. Kevin Spacey didn't lose his career in a courtroom. He lost it in a conference room, behind a closed door, under the terms of a contract he had signed himself. That is what a breach of contract can cost. In this case, the cost was almost everything. If this case opened your eyes to something you didn't know, share it with one person who still thinks they remember how the Spacey story ended, because chances are they don't know the half of it. Subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell so you don't miss next week's case, and I'll see you in the next one.